Hey guys, Farmer Jesse here. Today, I want to talk about the Broadfork, and I want to talk about how to use it, how it can be used, and how to shop for one. So, let's do it. First, let's talk about how it can be used. There's several different ways that people use the Broadfork. You can plow. Hannah and I plowed our first garden entirely with the Broadfork, which is crazy. I don't recommend doing that, but we did it and it was fine. And then we had a very sturdy Broadfork, which is this meadow creature. I'll talk a little bit more about that. The other thing that people do with the Broadfork, or the most popular way to use it, is for deep tillage or aeration. This is when you just lightly pop the soil. You already have the soil plowed, you already have it tilled from the previous year or from the previous crop. So what you do is you go through and you just pop that soil back a little bit, and it sort of lets in oxygen and opens it up so that worms and everything can kind of get around a little easier. And so roots can dig deeper. So if you want good carrots, you have to Broadfork. It makes all the difference. So another way that people use it, or we often use it, is that you can use it to harvest. So we harvest carrots with it. We harvest, parsnips, we'll harvest daikon radishes, anything that's kind of deep down. Potatoes we won't really harvest with this, but you can, just because it's a much bigger job, and you can use, we have an implement for that on our BCS. But you can use it for any of that. Plowing for sweet potatoes, any sort of root vegetables. It makes a great harvesting tool for those sorts of things. You can also sort of dig, dig holes for planting trees and planting shrubs and those sorts of things. It's great because you can make like a nice little square. We planted figs that way. You make a nice little square and you can pop up all the soil and dig it out with a shovel. It's really great for that. It's super easy. So how to use it? Plowing is pretty self-explanatory. You're gonna sink it into the soil as far as you can, and you're gonna pull it back as far as, it's gonna maybe take a little muscle, but you're gonna pull it back. And then I like to have a second person come and actually just flip that sod over, and then you move back, and do it probably, depending on the size of the tines of the Broadfork that you purchase. We'll talk about that in a second. Go back 12, 18 inches and then do it again. 12 is better because those sod tend to be very heavy. It's very hard to do this, but it's possible. For deep aeration, which tends to be the way that people use the Broadfork, you're actually going to go right down the middle of your bed, and you're just going to sink it into the soil and pull it back until the soil pops. And it's just going to kind of like lightly crack on the surface, and you can raise it up a little bit more than that, and then you're just going to pull the Broadfork out, step back about 12, 14, 16 inches, and then put it back in and do it again. And you're just going to do that all the way down your bed, and it's going to loosen all that soil underneath. That's going to be easier to do in looser soil once you've constructed the beds and really done it a few times. Then your Broadforking goes really smoothly. Some of our beds are like that. Some of our beds go really smoothly, and some of them we didn't get to Broadforking last year, so they're kind of tough, and we have to use a heavier duty Broadfork. So you should expect with your Broadfork for a 100-foot bed, it's going to take a very a sort of compacted bed, a bed that you really kind of have to work on. It may take you 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes in a really bad situation. However, once it gets loosened, you can do those beds, especially once you get in a good rhythm. You see me kind of jumping and pushing it in. Once you get in a good rhythm, it'll take you 2 minutes for a 100-foot bed, maybe 4 minutes. It's not going to take you that long. It sounds like a lot of work, but once it's loose enough, it goes pretty fast. So that's worth thinking about. And that kind of brings us to which Broadfork to purchase. We own two. We own the Meadow Creature Broadfork, which is really heavy duty. I think it's 24 pounds. It has 4 tines, and it's pretty long tines too, and they sink kind of on their own. They sink really deeply, and it's very, very good tool for very compacted areas of the garden. This is a great tool for the first year. It would be a really hard tool to do a lot of ground on really fast. So if you are going to be doing compacted soil, if you're going to be plowing, I recommend a heavier duty Broadfork. We also own a second one from Way Cool Tools. This is a much lighter Broadfork, but also very heavy duty. The tines are a little shorter, which is great which is fine for aeration. but it's lighter, so you can move faster with it. So in a soil that's maybe not as compacted, you can move really quickly with the Way Cool Tools Broadfork. I often recommend to people when they're buying their first Broadfork to get one of these kind of medium weight ones that sort of you can plow, but you can also aerate with them. You can do the deep tillage with them. They're kind of a multi-tool. I like that. There's a few of them. The Way Cool Tools one. There's one Johnny's is making that I haven't tried yet, but looks like it would work really well. It's have slightly thicker tines. They also have one with thinner tines, which we'll talk about in a second. But the one with the slightly thicker tines might be good for that sort of doing both. You know, you want to make sure that you can, if you're going to be plowing or if you're going to be dealing with some compacted soil, it may be nice to have both, because the thinner tines will bend in compacted soil, or definitely when you're plowing. Sorry, I'm going to cut in here a little late. I lost some of the footage, but I wanted to note on the thinner tine, Johnny's Broadfork is really good for getting in the soil really quickly, and it can be moved really fast because it's lightweight. We had one, it was great. I was probably using it on probably too compacted soil, and I kind of bent one of the tines. That's not going to happen normally, but I did that. So don't plow with it, just use it for deep aeration. It's great for that. So can you do that stuff without a Broadfork? Yes. I mentioned subsoiling just a second ago, and I think subsoiling is a great option. This is if you have a tractor and you don't want to do a bunch of Broadforking by hand, you can get a subsoiler and it will sink right down the middle. Now it tears up, it's maybe a little bit more hard on the soil than a Broadfork, but it's equally effective. It goes deep and it breaks up that sort of subsoil, and it allows for deep aeration, which is great. It's really necessary for deep-rooted crops like tomatoes, carrots, those sorts of things. Also, on a smaller scale, you can just get a digging fork. These are smaller versions of Broadfork with like a single handle and maybe like a top bar, and then just, you know, a few tines on the bottom. And they may be smaller. They generally don't go to 30 inches, though some of them do. Then, you know, you can use that pretty quickly, and that'll go really fast. I've also used a digging shovel, a spade, and you just kind of pop that soil back, and that works too. It's not quite as effective as the Broadfork, but it does do the job in a pinch. So anyway, if you guys have any questions about that, let me know. Hit us up in the comments. Otherwise, if you like this video, please like this video, share it with your friends, leave a comment, subscribe to our channel. We do videos like this, and we also talk about how to cook your CSA and how to cook various things. So, I don't know, follow us if you'd like to. Otherwise, you guys have a great week. We'll see you later. Bye.